All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the February 1st meeting of the Audit and Finance Committee. My name is Travis Keys. I am the chair, and I just wanted to make everyone aware that this is being recorded and live streamed as per Sunshine Law regulations. So with that being said, let's go ahead and move to our first agenda item. This will be the acceptance of the meeting minutes from November 2nd. I will motion or ask for a motion to accept those meeting minutes.
I'll move.
All right. Do I have a second?
Tarika Brooks, I second.
Excellent. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. The minutes from the last meeting are approved unanimously. Excuse me. We're going to move along to our second item. We have, first and foremost, we're pleased to welcome Christopher Reeder to our committee. He comes to us as the finance director from the city of Auburndale. Chris has a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in finance from Florida Southern and a MBA with a concentration in accounting from Florida Southern. I know Chris personally, and I'm happy to have him here. If there's anything you'd like to say, Mr. Reeder, now's the time, but we definitely welcome you.
Thank you, Travis. And just want to say thanks to everybody. Looking forward to contributing to the committee and appreciate the invitation.
Thank you, sir. We were going to have Mrs. Cunningham with us today, but she has a scheduling conflict. Mrs. Cunningham will be our school board liaison going in on this session. So we appreciate Mrs. Cunningham and her leadership and hope to see her on the next meeting. With that being said, we're going to continue on with our finance update. I believe that's going to be Ms. Hester today. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
All righty.
So I just want to update y'all on the annual comprehensive financial report that was completed. For those of you who don't know, it used to be the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. It was changed this year to the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. That was completed on December 17th. Just hours before we left for Christmas break. The goal was to get it done before break. And like I said, within hours, we did get it completed and the auditors issued their opinion. Just to review a few findings that they did find, which have been corrected. There was an issue with the CFA report, the 9.5 million that was the coronavirus money. It actually came to us through the BOCC. So we had not put that on the CFA report. That was corrected. So that is, that did go onto that report. Also, there was an issue with the required supplement information, just the presentation of it. We needed 10 years. So we had four years on there, and we did add that additional year so that we were in compliance with that. Second finding they saw was under the child nutrition cluster. There was, the reporting was fine on it. We had not done the time and effort portion of that, which is employee salaries. A percentage goes to the child nutrition cluster, that federal grant. The other portion goes into general fund. We just had, we need to start reporting on that. So we have fixed that, and moving forward, we will report on the time and effort quarterly. And the other thing they saw was under the budget that we had more actual expenditures than what were in the budget. what happened with that was it was literally just a reporting, the reports that we were running. They were not ran. There's a below the line and above the line, and in whole we were fine. It was just the way it was reporting. The report wasn't presenting it correctly, and we have got that corrected, and that will go moving forward. So all in all, very good audit. Very proud of my staff. We spend hours and hours and hours working on the annual comprehensive financial report, and I think they actually presented, Mark Arroyo, the state auditor, did it this year from the Auditor General's office, and he presented in Tuesday's work session. Any questions?
No questions at all.
And I think
Wow.
Heather's going to review the operational side. I did the financial side of the audit.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Hester. Ms. Jenkins?
Good morning, everyone. First off, I'd like to start out by saying how proud I am of Lisa and her staff. She has a fairly young staff, and she has worked with them and taught them, and for findings, considering that they've all been corrected and they were all minimal, is excellent. So I want to thank her and her staff and look forward to getting ready to go through the next year of the CAFR. Well, ACFR, my apologies. So I'm going to talk a little bit. They also did an operational audit this year. We did have a few more findings in that area. And I'm going to scroll up. I believe we've sent you guys copies so you can see the actual detail of these reports. Finding 1 said that the district did not always timely obtain and review the results of the required background screenings for district personnel. We have a new chief of HR, Brian Warren. He's already made some corrections to the processes. HR has also had a lot of vacancies, which has contributed to some of their timeliness as they work through things. So this one is almost corrected as well. District procedures for evaluating applicants before employment and communicating information about former employees to other districts. So that happens when people call and ask for references. We do have a process that we have to follow. And again, Mr. Warren has assigned specific individuals to work on evaluating these applicants before their employment. District school safety policies and procedures need improvement. A portion of this finding was requiring that we actually have our SROs sign in and out when they enter the schools. They have a process to clock in and out for the sheriff's office, but we've added an additional layer that they now come into the school, actually fill out their booklet when they get in so that we can lay eyes on them and know which person is there. We're also working on our drill schedules and for our emergency responses. Finding 4, the district did not always provide the required youth mental health awareness and assistance training. This training went through some changes when we encountered COVID. Our individual that's in charge is Dr. Lutz. So Dr. Lutz actually took a portion of the online training and has started that up for the district and is working to ensure that everyone has received the training. The biggest obstacle really was being able to meet in person and the required format not being available for us to utilize. Finding 5 says, contrary to state law, the board did not adopt instructional personnel grandfather salary schedules 2018 to 19 and 2021 fiscal years based on employee performance. This finding is a little different because it is a negotiated item that we must work with the union in order to correct. One positive piece is this year we've added in 2 supplements to based on performance and also based on critical shortage areas, which is touched on if you read further into the finding. So we've made a correction, and we're going to continue to work with the union to ensure that we have met these requirements as we go into negotiations this year. Finding 6, the district had not established policies and procedures to document a process for identifying instructional personnel entitled to differential pay. So that is also like our critical shortage areas. Math and science are an example. So we have included a supplement for that, and also Title I to provide additional compensation for those working in those areas. Finding 7, the district paid for pre-employment physical examinations for prospective employees without legal authority. The interesting thing about this one is it's based on an opinion that was written back in the 80s. We are changing our processes. We will only, we're looking at who we need to have pre-employment physicals for, and also working with those lower paid employees when they come in to ensure they're affordable. Oftentimes with the physicals and with fingerprints, they're for bus drivers, bus attendants, individuals that are lower on our salary scale. So we are identifying a way in which to still meet the requirements, but to not put a burden on those individuals. The district did not timely and prominently post the budget on the website. That is correct. We had an ADA complaint, and basically what was stated is that our document was not accessible. It's a very large PDF. So those with handicaps are unable to read or access the document. We sent that to remediation. It took several months to get it back. The PDF was changed, and it was made accessible. So after we've done that, I've worked with DOE and with several different people, and we are still continuing to make our documents accessible. But as soon as the budget is published, it will be posted, because statute does supersede all other requirements. The district needs to strengthen controls to ensure the accurate reporting of instructional hours for adult general education classes. Our adult ed area is working on a new process for this. I actually have a meeting with them at 10 to go over the progress that they've made. And finding 10 talks about our information technology user access privileges to human resource was not always necessary and appropriate. I'm not sure if many of you are aware, we have SAP and we've had it for a very long time. And a lot of the changes, like the one Lisa mentioned with the reporting that affected our financial report, are processes and structures that were put into place many years ago. So we have a new program that is helping us to identify who needs access and what they need access to, because previously it would be a block. So you would have maybe 10 different levels of access that would be assigned to an accounting role. Now with our new program, we're able to go through those 10 levels and say, oh, our accountant only needs 8. And we don't have to assign the whole block. We can assign the specific levels that they need. So we're probably 2/3 of the way through the process with that. So that's very helpful. Regarding these operational audit findings, based on law, we have 45 days to respond and provide our corrective action plans. So we've brought all the stakeholders together. We're meeting as a group. We have corrected most of these, and we're compiling our documentation to send in. Then we'll also meet 180 days later to make sure that we are still following those processes and have strengthened them as well as we can. So, do you all have any questions?
Ms. Jenkins, this is Travis. I read the responses by the superintendent and regarding finding 7, and this is just, I'd probably not set in stone, but I totally agree with the way things are handled now with your explanation with those lower on the tier and taking those costs for them. But the last sentence there said the cost of pre-employment physical examination will be paid for through funding sources that's allowed by law. Do we have any indication of what those funding sources are? Just curiosity.
We're looking into a program. So what a pre-employment physical can do is limit risk in regards to workers' compensation at a later date. If you hire an employee that can't physically handle the job that they're in, it can put them in a position where they're prone to injury. So we are researching whether or not it can be used for specific jobs to mitigate that risk.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? See, yeah, you guys do such a wonderful job. Everybody's just blank.
Hello, this is Bernard.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
In regards to item 7, are any of those costs going to end up being disallowed? And if so, do we have a fund that would pay for that disallowance?
They have not indicated that they will be disallowed or that we will have to make a repayment, but we do have a few funding sources that are not state or federally funded, so they don't have any limitations.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
A question on finding 8. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
The ADA issues have been quite prevalent during this period of time. I understand you correctly that you've solved those issues.
We have some of them. Yes, sir. I believe it was $3,500 to have the budget book mitigated. I did contact DOE and ask if we could post a summary. What you have to do, the easiest way is to actually integrate it into the website so it becomes part of the text, and the book is too large to do that.
Yes.
The DOE won't accept a summary. So they say our book needs to be put up in its entirety. So we will have to continue to follow the mitigation processes, but it takes a while to get that done. So we are posting the document in the interim. Some of our other large documents, fortunately, we've been able to link them to other sites. So that helps us out, because the actual document is posted on like a federal site or another state site, and we can provide a link which will take them there. So it only has to be reformatted once.
So that I can imagine that such a large document would be very difficult to view on your computer. You'd have to have a pretty large screen.
It is. It's difficult. I wear glasses. It's difficult for me to view on the computer and in print. So to meet all our requirements and have all the schedules and things in there, we continue to look for ways to make that easier and more understandable by the public.
So, excuse me, one of the questions in. So of the findings and the response, you indicated that you have complied with most of the findings. Is that what I heard you say? Most, not all.
Yes, sir. I say most because we've had one initial meeting with all the stakeholders, and we went over the findings and the documentation that we need to provide to show that we've corrected them. We're still reviewing that, and we have another 2 meetings set up before we will submit our final report. So I just want to be, we want to be clear that we have truly corrected them. So I would say 80%. There's just a few things that we still have to talk about, and a few that we can't, like our permissions. That's a process with our computer system. So we're 2/3 of the way through that. As soon as we finish those reviews, that one will be corrected as well.
Another question. I noticed that a number of the findings were also noted in 2019 report. Is that
Yes, sir.
a fair statement?
It is. There are I believe there were 3 that were noted in 2019, and the one regarding the grandfathered salary schedule was also noted in the prior year. We do have to provide a joint legislative audit committee response to that one as well, which is due on March 15th. We have added the supplement to create the differential pay based on performance for the grandfathered scale, and we'll include that in our response. But as we move forward, we'll continue to work with our unions to make sure that we maintain that and comply.
Heather, I have a question. Do you anticipate seeing any of these showing up again in a future audit, or do you anticipate being able to take care of all of these?
No, ma'am, I think that I'm confident we can take care of all of them. As I mentioned, Brian Warren, we have a new chief of HR, and when you all know, when you have audits, it brings these issues to our forefront so that we can correct them, and he's working really hard. A lot of these are in that area, so he's already right on board with them, and we'll ensure that they don't come up again.
Thank you.
In the mind of an auditor, you always look at the last findings and go to those first.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Well, that's absolutely excellent. Thank you, Ms. Loretta and Mr. Jennings and Mr. Bowles for your questions. I appreciate you guys being engaged. Anybody else have any questions?
Yes, I just have one clarification. Doretha Brooks, when you say the SROs sign in, do you mean actually they sign in on paper, or is there an electronic way that they swipe and go in the school, swipe when they come out?
It's an actual paper. They were already clocking in and out in their cruisers, in their cars, but now they physically come into the schools and sign a book. So those copies are being maintained at the school level for review.
Thank you. I didn't know how that process worked.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks. Anybody else? All right, then. Again, thank you, Ms. Jenkins, and thank you, Ms. Hester, for being with us this morning. Next, we have the internal audit update, and I believe that's Ms. Matthews, if you want to take over, Ms. Gill.
Morning. You hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, awesome. I've also attempted to share my screen, just a little summary of a PowerPoint presentation to kind of go through our internal audit update. Can you see that?
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. Okay. So you'll recall that at the last Audit and Finance Committee meeting, we had Jennifer Christensen with Carwiggs and Ingram present the draft of the internal accounts or internal funds audit. Nothing changed after that, and the report was finalized and presented to the school board during the January 11th work session. We got a clean opinion on that audit as well, on the financial statements. And then on the compliance piece, as Jennifer said last time, the average number of findings were 0.68 per school, and 40% received findings. I'm just working with my screen here, sorry. But 33% had no more than 2 findings. So very good audit. With compliance testing, as you know, there's going to be issues because they choose a sample, you have turnover, and it's compliant. So it's either right or not. There's not a materiality issue with compliance. We in the internal audit department summarized the most common findings and prepared a 3-year trend graph and sent that to all schools so they can better prepare for future audits. So maybe they didn't have a finding at their school and they would have only received their report from Curriggs and Ingram, we do the summary so they can see what's happening everywhere. So that helps them prepare. The state of Florida Auditor General audit that Lisa and Heather just went over. The Internal Audit Services Department was reviewed as part of that audit. And especially in light of a statute revision that happened a few years ago, this was the first audit that we had undergone with the state since the statute change. And they had no findings or recommendations for improvements for internal audit. We were pretty much already doing those things. Some things we had to implement, like the comprehensive risk assessment every 5 years. We had done a more informal one, and the statute now requires that be a written report that's revised every 5 years. So we had done that, and so that was a good report. We did an overtime pay analysis of the district. I'm going to turn it over to Cece and let her talk to you about that.
Okay, good morning. Okay, we did an overtime analysis for the entire year for the entire district for the year 2021. And it showed $1,599,955 paid to 2,680 employees of additional and overtime pay. Some reimbursement for COVID related. CARES Act was $47,682. This amount consisted of 53% of department employees and 47% of school employees. We condensed the report to show the top earning departments and schools of overtime and additional time. And they're listed on the screen there. Support services had $679,602. Maintenance, $105,390. George Jenkins High School, $49,081. Winter Haven High School, $36,399. And Auburndale High School, $35,705. For those top earning departments and schools, we asked management or the principal to respond and give reasons why their overtime and additional time were so much, and they're added to the report when we issue the final report. Because additional and overtime pay is a costly expenditure, we recommend to all departments and schools that payment for time beyond normal work hours should be kept to a minimum. And the reason for the additional overtime should be documented and pre-approved. Overtime should be used primarily to address circumstances of an emergency or temporary nature per school board policy. And the need for additional time should be reevaluated on a regular basis. And when we do our payroll audits of schools and departments, at that time, we also evaluate overtime for that particular department or school, and they give reasons, and we have to they make sure that it's approved at that time also.
Thank you, Cece. Any questions or comments before we move on? Okay.
Is the 1.6 million, is that a normal repetitive amount per year to have paid out in overtime? Is that higher because of COVID? Is it lower than what we've seen before?
It's certainly higher because of COVID. A lot of the reasoning was COVID. And at the time we did the report, we had only gotten the 47,000 reimbursement, but Heather and the finance team were looking for other reimbursement from ESSER funds and different areas, are identifying overtime that was related to COVID for reimbursement. But yes, it was higher than normal. And, we just feel like this is a good opportunity to, just let the superintendent and management take a look at it and see what they're doing, because sometimes they don't maybe realize how much we've paid out, and having to look back and analyze helps because they have to provide a written response. I know I had the support services was like, wow, not really aware that they had paid out that much. Not that it wasn't necessary, it was, but and they provided a very detailed explanation of to why, but it's eye-opening, I guess, when we look at this.
And in addition to COVID and employees being out due to COVID, there was also a lot of open positions and staffing issues where people would quit and they just hadn't replaced them yet. So it required them to have their other employees step up. And so those were the responses we got on that.
So is this an analysis that you do on a regular basis periodically, or somebody just had a feeling that this probably needed to be looked at?
We do try to work it into our audit cycle. It had not been done in a few years. Okay. So this was the first time in a few years that we had done it.
Carol, if I can add
Sure.
quickly to this, our ESSER grants are reimbursement grants. So we do have overtime budgeted, and like Cece and Carol have both mentioned, we've had large numbers of vacancies in our custodial area and district-wide, and it's been harder to fill those positions because of COVID. So we do have our ESSER 1 and 2 grants approved thus far, and we have our ESSER 3 grant, which is the American Rescue Plan, submitted. So for 1 and 2, we are identifying and running reports to show our expenditures to date. And then as we do journal entries to transfer those to that fund, that will increase the amount of the 1.6 that's reimbursed. So we're doing the step 2 of that process.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll move on. So another area that we oversee is construction projects, agreed upon procedures. Same firm that does our internal funds audit, but a different team. Completed work on Loftman Oaks Elementary, which is a project that was a 16 classroom addition. They go in after a project is completed and just recalculate to make sure that we've been charged appropriately and so forth. And Rada Construction was the contractor here. It's very common. In fact, I don't recall a project they've looked at where there hasn't been some type of refund to the district. This was, not huge, $15,000, but it was more than the cost of their services, which were about $9,600. And overall, over the last 15 years that we've used the firm to do this, we've had a net savings of $367,000. And they don't take very much staff time. They work with the contractors and pull in the documentation and so forth. So it's kind of a win-win for us to have them look at those. And we've had some that have been quite large. So we're continuing to do that. And we started the 21-22 year payroll audits with Alta Vista Elementary. Nothing really too out of the ordinary as far as findings, but it did prompt an issue that we need to work on with a work schedule and contract hour conflict that we came across. So I've been working with Brian Warren, who Heather mentioned is the new head of HR, to resolve that. And then, of course, we try to oversee training so that people can be prepared and know the right procedures and all to follow. So some time ago, my department developed a payroll training, an online payroll training. And each year we look to update the course content if necessary and create a new quiz. And then everyone that has payroll responsibility accounting at the schools has to take the course and pass the quiz. So we put that out in October. And because of the holidays and everything, we're still kind of following up just to make sure everyone has taken that course that needs to. But we've got, most people have taken it and passed. And I think it's helpful. People, good feedback, people let us know that, hey, yeah, they've learned something. Unfortunately, sometimes the best learning tool is the audit itself, but this is also another tool in the toolbox. So that's all I have, Travis, if anybody has any questions or comments.
I have a question.
Sure.
This is the operational audit included references to the charter school system. So the operational audit included the charter schools as well as the public school.
Heather, are you still on?
I am.
Okay.
As a district, we have oversight over the charter schools. So when they look at the district, they look at it in its entirety. Is there a specific question that you had about that, sir?
No, it was just a question of the responsibility of that the public school system has to the charter school system, or vice versa.
We have oversight. They each have their own governance, and then we do have a charter school office within the district that works with them and helps them to meet compliance. And then our finance staff also reviews their financials monthly and quarterly and at the end of the year, and that's included in our ACFR as component units.
Heather, they're still required to have their own audits, aren't they? The charter
Yes.
schools? And
Yes,
that's
ma'am.
what you're saying is included in our
Yes.
ACFR. Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am. They get those. They have their own audits and then they submit them to us.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose you must have access to their findings, the auditor's findings.
Yes, it's included in their audit. A summary of, are you asking about a summary of all their findings based on the audits they had done, or what was included in our operational report?
Well, I was just trying to understand the distinction, where the responsibility and the lines drawn between the public school system and the charter school system.
That's a blurry line. By statute, we have oversight, but the schools are required to maintain, the charter schools are required to maintain compliance and follow the guidelines set forth for the charter schools. So we're basically oversight. We work with them and help them to ensure that they are doing what they need to be doing. So for example, we review the financials monthly. If you have a charter school that looks like they're going to be in a negative financial condition or they're in trouble, it's our job as the district to notify them and say, hey, we were looking at your financials. We see these issues. We need to work together to make sure that you're on the right foot. So then we work in. So we monitor until we see an issue, and then the district steps in to help them make sure that issue doesn't remain.
So the issue then of compensation, then what is the relationship to the union? Does union apply to both? Union compensation apply to both public schools and charter schools? No,
sir. It's just public schools. They're responsible. The charter schools they don't have to pay their employees what we pay them. They have their own guidelines, so it's separate. their salary schedules are not set based on ours. They can choose to, but they don't have to.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Anybody else have questions for Ms. Matthews, Ms. Gill? Having none, now we're going to go ahead and open up to public comments if there's anybody from the public that wanted to make comments. All right. Hearing none, want to again thank you to everyone who was on the call today and for participating. Thank you so much. I know this is time out of your day and we definitely appreciate you. With that being said, we'll remind everybody that our next meeting is set for May 3rd at 9 a.m. Carol, is that going to be continue to go forward with Zoom, or are we kind of going to judge at the time and see where we're going?
That is completely up to the committee, whatever the preference is, if you would like to continue the virtual meetings or if you want to meet in person.
Okay. Well, we'll send out an email and we'll get everybody's opinion on that. I know it's been quite a while since we've all met in person, but this is kind of convenient too. So it's up to, I guess, the committee as a whole. We'll go forward with that. Are there any other questions or concerns before we adjourn? None. All righty. Thank you so much, everyone. We're adjourned and we'll see you in May.
Thanks,
Thank
Travis.
you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Thank you.